Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I am your host and CEO of Vitality OET. We are a women's nutrition, health, and fitness company that focuses predominantly on women's hormones, particularly as you start going through perimenopause and onwards. We know that you experience so many changes in this time of your life, whether it be hot flashes, night sweats, irritability, brain fog, or weight gain around the middle that has come out of absolutely nowhere despite you not changing anything. So you go back to your tried and true methods of cutting calories, cutting carbs, doing a bunch of cardio, yet this time nothing really seems to be working. The scale is moving in the wrong direction and you just end up feeling worse. But we know now that your body is inherently different than it was prior to you experiencing these hormone changes. So our mission here at Vitality is to help you understand what your body is going through so you can finally reach those health and fitness goals, live a life full of vitality, and really understand how to take care of this new body of yours. So 2024 is almost here, and we all know what that means. New Year's resolutions. And what most women tend to do is they start tracking their food with the goal of seeing how little they can possibly consume yet again, which results in you probably failing. You probably won't get to your results, at least you won't have ones that last. So today I want to go over the biggest dieting mistakes I see in menopausal women and what you should be doing come January instead. And I do want to mention again that our Menopause Fat Loss Workshop is back. This is one of our most popular things that we've ever done. So what will happen is you register, you get a metabolic assessment from us. Your coach will make a customized plan based off of that specifically for you. On night one of the workshop, we're going to go over the 5 main things preventing you from losing weight during menopause. After night 2, we are going to send you your results as well as a roadmap outlining where your food intake should be, recommendations for exercise, and suggestions for supplements if that's something that you want to do. Of course, that is completely optional. We don't like to push supplements, not necessary. Night 2, we go over your results that you get from your email in small breakout sessions with women of similar situations as you, with a coach that is dedicated to help you really understand your results, how to move forward in 2024 to improve your metabolism, improve your hormonal balance so you can finally lose weight. The reason we like these breakout sessions is that it gives you so much time to ask all the questions of the coach who's very familiar with your situation and your story. Everything is 100% customized to you. And of course, as always, we like to give away free stuff. So someone who attends both nights is going to win 3 months of free coaching one-to-one. More info on that is in the show notes for you. So again, like I said, in the back of our mind, 2024 is looming. We're all like thinking of those resolutions. We're going to get back on track, right? We always think about that. Or we're thinking of the next fad diet we're going to do with our friends or something that worked for someone else. And you're just going to go for it. But I know for a lot of you, this is not your first rodeo. You are frustrated because you feel like you're doing everything right, yet you see no physical changes. You aren't feeling any better in terms of energy, hot flashes, bloating, sleep, or you just lose weight just to put it back on again. Of course, that's frustrating. It really sucks to feel like you're putting in all this effort and quite honestly suffering, not feeling any better, and you've got nothing to show for it. You have tried diet after diet, New Year's after New Year's, but the real problem is that no one's actually asking you the important questions. So why is your body struggling to lose fat? What hormonal imbalances do you have? How many diets have you done? How long was each diet? How much stress and trauma have you been through? What is your sleep, digestion, and energy like? How do you feel? And how do all of those things work together to affect your metabolism? And that's really crucial to understand because your metabolism is how many calories your body burns at rest. So if your metabolism is fast, like a diesel truck, that means your body's really good at burning calories. So you're pretty much good to go into a fat loss phase and we'll see results relatively easy. But I'm sure most of you don't feel like you're in that position because if you were, you wouldn't be struggling with weight, exhaustion, overwhelm, bloating, hot flashes, poor sleep, cravings, blood sugar control, thinning hair, low libido, and well, you know the list. You've got all the symptoms. So it's more than likely slow, which means you're more like a hybrid car. So your body's not good at burning calories. So that's why you're struggling. If your body's not good at burning calories, of course it's going to be harder to lose weight because your body's just not good at that. So this is why you need to really focus on improving your metabolism, which is why we are bringing back again that workshop for you guys. So the biggest mistakes that I typically see is not addressing this, right? Like everyone is focusing on seeing how little you can possibly eat, seeing like you're just looking for the quick thing. You just think you can just cut your calories and it's going to work this time. I have a really good video of how the cutting calories actually works in our Facebook group, which is a great resource. There's a great graph that shows you what happens to fat mass, to your metabolism, to your muscle mass, and all these things every time you cut calories and every time you do a diet. If you haven't seen that video yet, go to the Facebook group. It just helps really put a visual to how you're feeling and what you've been through. And it just helps so much. So now let's talk about the things that women typically do. The 6 biggest mistakes that I see women do come January 1st. So one is always eating as little as possible without having any idea of where your baseline is. So I'm sure many of you, it comes January 1st, you open up MyFitnessPal or your Lose It app or whatever tracking app you're using. And your goal is to just eat as little as you can. That is a terrible mistake, because what you want to do is you want to eat as much food as you possibly can and still see results. Because if you cut your calories really low, you have nowhere else to go and you are going to plateau. Your metabolism is going to slow down. So the way I like to explain it is if you have this sliding net of where your maintenance calories are. So for me, my maintenance calories are anywhere from like 2,100 to 2,400. Pretty solid range. And I eat there all the time to maintain. Awesome. I'll eat a little bit more to put on muscle easier. I'll eat less if I'm going into a fat loss phase. But most of my life, I'm in this 2,100, 2,400 calorie range. That's where my metabolism is. But let's say I decide I want to lose weight. So now I'm going down to 1,200 calories because apparently that's what we're supposed to do now, right? That's what the internet tells us, 1,200 calories. So let's say I do that. I'm probably going to see some pretty rapid weight loss because that's like 1,000 calories less than what I should be eating. But then let's say I just stay there and I stay there and I stay there and I stay there. Your body is constantly adapting to the energy that you're giving it. So what happens is your body is always trying to balance calories in, calories out through a multitude of systems. It's not just how much you eat and how much you move. We did a whole other podcast on that with Coach Cariana that you can go back and listen to a few weeks back. But what happens is if you're eating at that low calorie range for a long time, that sliding net of your maintenance goes from 2,100 to 2,400 and it just starts moving down and down and down. And now before you know it, now I have stalled weight loss. Nothing's happening anymore. And it's because now I'm at my maintenance because my body's thyroid function has likely slowed down. My hormonal production has likely slowed down. So my metabolism is slowing down. My digestion's probably going sideways. And now my maintenance is probably 1,200 to 1,500 or even lower. So to continue to see weight loss is my only option to cut calories then and try to increase my exercise? Well, probably. But how realistic is to eat less than that for the rest of your life just to have your metabolism continue to slow down? So now you have to work on boosting that metabolism, getting enough calories in to bring that sliding scale back up. So now my metabolism can be 1,300 to 1,600 and then 1,400 to 1,700. And we do this by slowly increasing your calories. But the thing that I'm trying to point out here is just trying to eat as little as possible is not a good metric for sustainable weight loss, because what happens is then we quote unquote fall off the wagon because 1,200 calories is incredibly restrictive. And now I go back to eating my regular 2,100, but my maintenance now is 1,200 to 1,500. So now if I'm eating at 2,100, that's 600 calories more than my maintenance because I didn't ease my way out of it properly. So now I'm going to see weight gain. But the thing is, a lot of us do this constant yo-yo, really low calorie to just falling off the wagon, coming back up to what we used to eat. And then what we see is we see weight gain. And then it's really hard to lose weight loss because you haven't done anything to improve your metabolism to bring it back up so you can actually go below your maintenance. So instead of going January 1st and to start logging food to see how little you can eat, the first thing that you should do is track where your food is first. Where on your daily basis track for 2 weeks. Where are you falling naturally? Where is your calorie intake? And then from here, we can look at where's your protein. We're seeing if you're getting enough carbohydrates in. Is your food intake consistent? Then we can look at cutting calories, because if you don't have to cut calories and all you got to do is improve food quality, increase your protein and carbs, and then you see weight loss, that's pretty awesome because you're seeing change without having to lose weight. But we all automatically go to, I need to eat as little as possible. So that's mistake number 1, eating as little as possible, cutting calories as low as you can without doing any maintenance tracking first to see if what you're doing at maintenance is actually good, or if you need to come back up and boost your metabolism because your metabolism is too slow. So that's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, fasting and skipping meals. Oh my goodness, could I ever talk about this for a long time? I'm going to try really hard not to make this podcast over an hour, you guys, but I could get ranty and I'm going to work really hard not to. So here is the issue with fasting and skipping meals. Can fasting work for some people? Sure. For some people, if you're not experiencing hormonal symptoms, if your hormones are in a good place, if you're not stressed out, if you are sleeping well, if you're not struggling with putting on muscle mass, if you're not irritable and having brain fog, if you're not dealing with fluid retention, if you're getting enough recovery, then sure, fasting could work. But I'm sure I listed off a lot of things that do not apply to you. You're struggling with your sleep. You're struggling with your energy and cravings. You are struggling to get protein in. You are not sleeping well. You're struggling to put on muscle mass. Then fasting and skipping meals is actually going to make things worse. So first of all, we need to talk about cortisol. Of course, I'm never going to not talk about cortisol, right? So with cortisol, we want it to be highest in the morning, and then it dips down throughout the day and then is lowest at nighttime so you can sleep. But what happens if we're skipping our meals is food helps bring down cortisol levels, particularly carbohydrates. So if we are not having breakfast in the morning, cortisol will just continue to rise. And then you're having coffee on an empty stomach. Caffeine also increases cortisol, and cortisol then continues to rise and rise and rise until you have your first meal. And then most people have like a few almonds, or maybe they'll wait till lunch and have just a salad with a little piece of chicken. That's not enough. So what we're going to see is when cortisol is really high is we're going to see a decrease in our hormone production. So estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. We're going to see an increase in our androgens, which is going to lead to a whole bunch of hormonal symptoms. We're going to see more bloating. We're going to see more constipation. We are going to see sleep really takes a hit. Our energy and cravings gets out of control. And all these things really slow down our metabolism. And there's actually a study that just came out recently that stated women of menopausal age, when they were fasting, increased resting cortisol levels and had negative implications for cardiovascular events later on. And this is because a lot of women are not in a position where their body can handle the stress of not eating. So once you get to a better position, fasting could be an option, but right now for most women, it's not. A few other reasons that we don't like fasting here in particular is it's really hard to get your protein in. So most women are not getting anywhere near the protein recommendation they need. Like most women, it should be 0.8 grams per pound of body weight or 1 gram per pound of body weight or goal weight, which means women in general likely need to have more than 100 grams of protein in a day. But if you're not having breakfast, you're not eating till lunchtime, you have to try and cram in 100 to 150 grams of protein in a day in 2 meals and maybe a snack. That is a lot of protein. Like, that is a ton of chicken. You're not going to get all that protein in without using processed things. And it's really hard because protein's very filling. So if you're cramming that much protein in, then it's very hard to get in the amount of calories that you need. It's going to be hard to get the carbohydrates that you need. And you're probably going to have some digestive issues if you're trying to cram in that much protein in a small window. Okay. Plus, if we're in a small window, it's really hard to get enough calories in. So like I said, a lot of women have eaten really low calorie for too long. That's where their metabolism is. So it's hard to get enough calories to get your metabolism up to where it needs to be if you are fasting. Not to mention, fasting typically can garner a poor relationship with food for a lot of women. It kind of It kind of coincides with the binge and restrict cycle. It's like, I'm not going to eat, not going to eat, not going to eat. Boom, 12 o'clock hits and then I can eat whatever I want. It doesn't address food quality. It doesn't teach you anything. Like, what are you learning from fasting? Realistically, you're learning that if I eat before 12 o'clock, somehow that magically turns into fat. And if I eat after 12 o'clock, then I'm fine. That doesn't teach you much. So it's really important to understand your food choices, what your body actually needs specifically for you. You're going to likely experience crashes and cravings when we're fasting. And please, 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 please do not work out fasted when we're going through perimenopause and menopause and estrogen and progesterone are lower. We have a significantly harder time recovering, harder time accessing energy stores. We really, really struggle with a lot of things. So if you're working out fast, you're not going to be able to work out as hard in your workouts. You're not going to benefit as much from your workouts. So something as easy as having a snack before you work out can make a huge, huge difference because now you have a readily accessible energy store to push this workout. Otherwise, cortisol is going to increase exponentially, and we're going to see negative side effects from that as well. So first mistake, trying to see as little calories that you can consume as possible. Mistake number 2 is fasting or skipping meals. Then we have number 3, working out as much as humanly possible. This is like a pretty funny one for me because obviously eventually you're going to run out of steam. You're going to run out of motivation. But also, I always like to tell women, where do you go from there? Because realistically, you want to work out as little as possible and still see the most results possible. Because let's say you start out gung-ho, I want to work out 5 days a week. Okay, so if we have results that stall or we need to push harder or like that takes out the option of increasing frequency, right? Your recovery is going to struggle from that as well. So like, where do you move forward from that? If you start out at 2 days a week full body, you could go to 3 days a week. You could lengthen your exercise times. Like you have so much room to add in more activity, add in more steps, add in more workouts. Whereas if you start all gung-ho crazy, where are you going to go from there? You want to put in as little work as possible and get as much results as possible. Okay, we tend to think we got to eat as little as possible and work out as much as we can, when really you want to do as little of both of those two and get results. Then we have detoxes, those detox teas and yada, yada, yada. And everyone's like, yeah, but it worked. No, detoxes, you're just starving yourself. You are lighter because you literally have no poop inside of you. That's what it is. You're doing these 7-day cleanses, 5-day cleanses. Yeah, you're going to be like 5 to 10 pounds lighter because you've got nothing in your gut. That's it. This is not a great way to lose weight sustainably because guess what? As soon as you start eating food again, you gain that weight back because food takes like water to digest, so you're going to have more fluid retention, right? You are also going to see that the scale goes up because you just have more food inside of you. So you didn't lose fat, you lost poop. That's it. So the next one is going clean. I hate the verbiage eating clean. Just don't be so restrictive. You got to be 80-20%, 80% whole foods, 20% fun foods. If you are just clean all the time, you end up having no balance. You end up being more likely to binge because when you say you can't have something, all you think about is that thing. Like it doesn't work. You tell me I can't have ice cream, I'm probably going to have ice cream that night. So you need to be aware of that and manage those things because it can lead to pretty intense cravings too. Like you can't cut everything out. If you allow yourself to have stuff every now and then, you'll be far more successful. We had a woman in our program who was really struggling with this. She's like, I feel like I'm doing so good. And then like potato chips come and I'm just out of control. I'm like, okay, well, what if we have like 2 or 3 small, like individual serving bags a week? So 2 or 3 days a week, we have that. And she was astounded, but guess what? She can like hit her goals now. She's far more consistent. She doesn't feel restricted. She feels in control around chips because they're not taboo. And it's really successful. So you have to have those things in your diet regularly that you enjoy because otherwise, if you're just limiting yourself and being so restricted around stuff, you don't enjoy food. You're not enjoying your presence. You're always thinking about those things. If you want the chips, have the chips. Just like have them in moderation. small serving sizes, have it regularly so it's not like novel and like fancy anymore, and then you're good. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And I hate going clean. Like, what does going clean even mean? To me, that's like, it's so restrictive, so unrealistic. Like, are you telling me you're never gonna have a piece of cake on your kid's birthday again? You're never gonna have a glass of wine again? Like, come on, that's so unrealistic. And anyone who tells you got to cut everything out, I don't know if they're the right person for you. They wouldn't be for me, that's for sure. And then lastly, number 6. So we've covered 5 of them so far. Eating as little as possible, fasting or skipping meals, working out as much as humanly possible, detoxes, going quote unquote clean. And then the last one is my favorite, which is most women's favorite one to do, which is cutting out your carbs. Eating a low carb diet can actually be incredibly detrimental to our health, especially once we're going through perimenopause and menopause and our estrogen drops. So a lot of people are going to be like, oh, Steph, carbs aren't essential. We technically don't need them. Yeah, you can survive without them. That doesn't mean you're going to thrive. Doesn't mean you're going to feel good. Doesn't mean it's not going to tank your hormones. You're going to lose your hair. You're not going to have energy. Like, yes, you can survive without carbs. You can survive without a lot of things. But why would you do that to yourself? So let's talk about this. When estrogen drops, we have a much harder time accessing energy stores, which is why working out fasted is a terrible idea. I mentioned that already. It's going to lower your gym performance. You won't see as great of results, and you're going to see an exaggerated cortisol response, which we know cortisol is a whole whirlwind thing. It's something people don't address enough. We did a whole podcast episode on cortisol and adrenal symptoms. So make sure you go back to that one because that was one that went into a little more in depth into that. So that's step number 1, reason why we don't want to cut carbs. Number 2, when estrogen drops, we become more catabolic. So what this means is our body breaks down muscle. Estrogen is what we like to call an anabolic hormone, so it builds up muscle. When estrogen drops, our body starts going from an anabolic state to a catabolic state, so wanting to break down muscle mass. Our body just wants to get rid of it. When we eat a low-carb diet, this also sends the signal to the brain to break down muscle. Carb is considered muscle sparing. Doing a ton of cardio also favors breakdown of muscle. So doing fasted exercise, not eating enough food, not eating enough carbs, doing a ton of cardio will all increase the rate of muscle loss, as well as the lower estrogen and testosterone that we see in a lot of women. And all of that is going to really slow down your metabolism, which makes your body burn less calories at rest. You kind of turn into that hybrid car, which makes you feel skinny fat. So what this means is you might see some loss on the scale, but you don't feel like you look more toned. You just feel like a smaller, but still like chubby version of yourself. And what happens is you're losing weight from both fat and muscle. But since you're losing muscle mass, your body fat percentage goes up. So you might be smaller, but your body fat percentage is higher. And then again, your body's not good at burning calories. And then this is where we start to see a lot of issues where it becomes very challenging to lose weight in menopause. It's also super important to note that carbohydrates are incredibly crucial for our thyroid health. We are at an increased risk of developing hypothyroidism when we enter perimenopause, and studies show that women who eat low-carb diets have significantly reduced thyroid function, so you are increasing your risk even more by cutting out your carbs. And our thyroid is really important because our thyroid is that thermostat that really controls if we're more towards the diesel truck end, so with a faster metabolism, or if we're more towards the hybrid car, a slower metabolism. So it dictates how good your body is at burning calories. But just by eating a low-carb diet alone, your body sucks at burning calories. So don't do that to yourself, okay? Carbs are also how we get fiber, which has a ton of health benefits like cholesterol reduction. So research shows that those eating a high fiber diet can significantly lower their heart disease risk and help lower your total blood cholesterol. I know this is something that a lot of women are nervous about, but increasing your carbohydrates and fiber can actually really help with that and combat that. It helps with blood sugar control. So fiber helps slow down the breakdown and absorption of carbohydrates and sugars in our gut. And this can help treat or prevent insulin-related conditions such as diabetes. So when blood sugar is controlled, are out of control, we tend to favor fat storage. And we know that when estrogen goes down, we already have a harder time regulating our blood sugars, because that's one of the roles of estrogen, is to help manage our blood sugar. So we see ourselves becoming more insulin resistant just by estrogen going down. And then if you're cutting out carbs and fiber, you're going to see that get even worse, which you don't want. Carbs are incredibly important for lowering our cortisol levels. I touched on this a little bit before. We know this is a huge issue during perimenopause and menopause, because as estrogen goes down, now we don't have estrogen to combat cortisol. So it takes only a 5 out of 10 to see cortisol go up on the stress scale, as opposed to before maybe you could handle a 9 out of 10 on the stress scale before seeing cortisol go up. And we know that when cortisol is high and then eventually low, because a lot of women are like, oh, no, Steph, I have low cortisol. That's because your cortisol levels were high for so long that your body's communication system just got like overburnt basically. And now your body is not very good at producing cortisol because it was high for so long. So we still have to take stress off that system. So we know that when it's high and then it ends up being low, it leads to weight loss resistance. So struggling to lose weight. It leads to thyroid issues. It stops progesterone production, which makes you more bloated. It results in fluid retention and inflammation. It negatively affects our estrogen levels. It decreases our sleep quality, which then increases cortisol even more. It decreases energy, reduces your muscle mass, can even lead to adrenal insufficiency, just to name off a few. And cortisol will constantly dump sugar into your bloodstream. So carbs will actually help with blood sugar control because it helps bring cortisol down and you can control that more. But we're constantly in this state of fight or flight. So even in the absence of carbs, your body is going to see spikes in blood sugar all of the time. And the more stressed out that you are, the more active that you are, the less sleep that you're getting, the less energy that you have, the more carbohydrates that you need, especially in perimenopause and menopause. So in summary of those 6 things, which I want you to completely avoid come January 1st, is we're not eating as little as possible anymore. We're not doing that. We're not fasting and skipping meals. We're not working out as much as humanly possible. We're not wasting money on detox teas and all those weird things, those cleanses. We're not going quote unquote clean and cutting out all processed foods, all sugars. We're not doing that. And we're not cutting out our carbs. So now you might be going, well, Steph, what the heck am I supposed to do then? What we need to do is see where things are falling first. Track your food for a few days, see where things naturally fall, and then just message me and I will help you figure out where your calories should be, where you need to go with this, or even better, you can sign up for our workshop and you'll get a plan based on your specific results, based on what your body specifically needs, so that we can address the root cause problem, get your metabolism back to where it needs to be, so you can finally lose fat and keep it off. That way your maintenance calories aren't 1,200 calories anymore and you're not gaining weight just by walking by a loaf of bread. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. And again, all the details for the workshop are in the show notes below. If you need anything at all, just send me a message. I'm always more than happy to help. Bye.